Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Moment of Honor with the Sanctuarian. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Becky Schueller as our special guest. Welcome, Becky. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So if you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself, give our audience a little bit of insight on the work that you do and what we're here to honor you for.
Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Becky Schueller, and my business is Beckys Training and Consulting. And it's a woman-owned business. And I do, as you can tell from the title of the business, training and consulting and management coaching. And I primarily work with nonprofits and tribes and counties, some schools, some small businesses. And the consulting I provide is in the area of executive and supervisory coaching and mentoring, board support to boards of directors, strategic planning, meeting facilitation if organizations are trying to transition to new things, or if they actually want to transform organizational culture or make other changes. And I have a few signature trainings, but I will just say that my background to do this work comes from 30 years working with nonprofits and tribal organizations and counties. And I was an executive director for 16 years. And for those of you who know the housing and homelessness worlds, I was a former housing and that's housing and urban development continuum of care coordinator for 12 counties in Northwest Minnesota. And I started out my career in Chicago working for women's organizations and in refugee services. And then I worked for a national organization doing fundraising for their international social and community development projects in countries around the world. And since then, as I said earlier, I've been working in housing and homelessness here in Minnesota, working with high-risk youth and families, and in general, supporting a very wide variety of nonprofits and tribal organizations and counties in their work to try to create important client outcomes and high community impact. And that's what I'm focused on. And a lot of that work primarily comes through the trainings that I do. And the most common trainings I offer are supervision and performance appraisal, which is for supervisors, for managers, for program coordinators. It's also for executive directors and HR, because one of the things I often hear is that in organizations, particularly as organizations get larger, it's easier for there to be a disconnect between frontline staff and some of the executive management in an organization.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Jocelyn, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I also train on grant writing readiness. One of my very, very common, or I should say popular trainings that I get a lot of custom requests for is ethical conflict management and communication skills. I also train on strategies to onboard, support, and retain your new executive and preparing the board for the executive director's annual evaluation. And for frontline staff, I also train on customer service and effective workplace communication skills. So I'm looking at those topics that I have seen create pain points for organizations. And I'm trying to bring best practices research as well as very real world practical strategies that everybody can implement.
Absolutely. And that's incredible. And I'm even learning more about you as we have this conversation. And so I want to know, since we're honoring the work that you're doing, I want to know what really inspired you to kind of move into the consulting. I know you had a lot of different background working with different organizations and groups before, but really what inspired you to want to start training this and working with these organizations on better structures and things like that within their companies?
So it really came from my experiences in the nonprofit world, and particularly as an executive director. And I really I realized that there is so much information out there that is valuable and that can
Mhm.
support people, but it's often not available because when you're working in the field, when you're doing that daily work and when you're kind of, chasing deadlines and deliverables
Mhm.
and trying to get everybody served, particularly during a pandemic as we've been
Yes.
experiencing for the past 2 years, it's really hard to keep up with some of that research and
Mhm.
information that's available. And it really helps if it can be delivered to you in a user friendly manner in a very condensed period of time. In a way that you can bring it back and use it in your organization or tribe.
Absolutely. And what I like about just even going through your website, which I will put all of her resources in the chat as we go. But also, if you do have questions for Becky, please put those in the chat box and I will be able to answer those as we go as well. One of the things I like about your website is not only are you offering the trainings where they can come in person, experience you, really dive into the knowledge that you have, but also you provide a lot of resources, free resources for them as well, just as a resource database that they can keep pulling from as well for their organization. Now, you mentioned the pandemic. Have you seen any kind of changes or had to kind of restructure the way that you do your work with this pandemic that's been ongoing now for almost 2 years?
Sure, great question. So the biggest change that happened is that people started to cancel for in-person training, and I
Mhm.
very quickly realized that there was no way in-person training was going to be an option for the foreseeable future. And at that time, of course, just like everybody else, I had no idea how long it would be. And
Mhm.
so I retooled. The first thing I did was I retooled a component of one of my standard workshops, and I did 4 or 5 sessions online of remote supervision and improving the quality of remote supervision. And I got very good attendance and receptivity to that. And I realized that people would probably welcome other online training. And so in the first 6 months of the pandemic, I converted everything to an online format so that now I'm almost exclusively training online. And in fact, for 2022, I revised the timing of my trainings. I do all of my trainings between 1 and 4, whatever time period in between those hours work, so that it's available to all time zones in the United States, including Alaska and Hawaii.
That's fantastic. And have you seen a difference in the expansion by going virtual of being able to reach farther out without the United States? And I know you do have some international as well. Have you seen a little bit of an increase in just attendance from a broader range of people, different demographic?
Yes, offering training virtually has definitely enabled many more people to participate. So I've had training participants from the UK, from Serbia, from Dubai, from Egypt, from Turkey, and I also throughout the US, whereas I primarily formerly had
Mhm.
Minnesota's taking my training, I've had people from Alaska. I have had people from Texas and New Mexico and New York and Massachusetts. And I don't get a ton of those. I think, as sort of the word of mouth grows and as I get better at reaching out to different audiences,
Mhm.
I'll get more of those. But it's been really fun. It's always really neat to have a diverse array of people. And the participants really, really value that. They said, hey, we have people from all over. And if we were just here in Northwest Minnesota, we'd be seeing people who look just like us. And so that's usually something that people really enjoy. And, you can also, some of my consulting work now has gone virtual. And so I've done some work with a Syrian refugee organization working in southeastern Turkey. And
Okay.
I really appreciated the ability to do that work virtually. And I've been pretty impressed with how well the video and sound quality is. I don't mean there are never glitches, but it's worked really well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's one thing too. All of us have really had to go virtual and relying a lot more on technology and learning our
Right.
levels of patience, definitely, especially in the beginning. And what is one thing that you would recommend to those who are looking to go into consulting or even start their own business, especially that may be wanting to start one now in the pandemic? What's a little piece of advice that you would give them?
That's a great question. I think it is to really figure out what your passion is. What is it you love to do? What is it that you feel like you can do better than other consultants, right? Because
Yes.
every consultant has their own area of expertise. Everyone has
Mhm.
sort of their own niche. And also to really think through how you're going to market your work.
Mhm.
And one of the things that was a surprise to me is I have had 30 plus years of experience in the nonprofit world. And I thought I knew things very well, but I've sort of had to re educate myself on some of
Mhm.
my basic topics. I'm always looking to learn, but
Yeah.
I also contract for outside help when I need it. Sometimes I exchange that help with other consultants. And one of
Mhm.
the things I would say is get yourself a little support network of consultants who are willing to support you and give you a little time. And in time, you'll return that to them, right? With your
Absolutely.
advice and support and recommendations. But let people help you and ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Most people are willing to help.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things too, like that I've even learned with my business is you can't do it all. I know when we start our business, it's our baby, it's the thing we want to be able to do all of the working parts.
Right,
But then we soon realize all of those 50 hats that we may be
right,
wearing
right.
isn't allowing us to give the best to those we're working with. And so being able to
Mhm,
outsource the things that you know someone else can do a little bit more efficiently, or expedite the process is going to ultimately help your business grow in a better and more efficient way. And
mhm,
then it allows you to really focus in on the thing that you are most passionate about. And you get to give more of that to
mhm,
those who you're working with. And I think that's a great thing. Now, what would be the thing that would, by transferring everything virtually, what is the most difficult thing that you've noticed about going from in person to, or even one of the biggest changes you've noticed from going virtual instead of in person trainings?
I think the challenge is really that some organizations don't have great technology. So not everybody has a mic or a camera
Mhm.
or is well set up to participate in virtual training. Another challenge is that sometimes organizations bring their whole teams together in person, but I'm virtual, and it's actually really hard to train with a group in a big room. It doesn't quite work that well because they can see and hear me, but I can't necessarily see and hear them that well. And that's the challenge because I generally have high engagement during my training, and I ask people to read some of the quotes that we share, and we do breakout sessions, and I ask for comments and their
Mhm.
questions, and so that issue of the technology is really a challenge. And
Mhm.
then there are those people who just do not like technology. It's not that they can't do it or don't understand it. It's that in the nonprofit world, in the health and human services and educational fields, a lot of the people go into this work because they want to connect with other people and not because they want to have a meaningful relationship with their computer, and they don't like the technology. So yeah, they would.
And I think that's one thing too that has become advanced throughout this pandemic is that most of those who are using virtual Zoom is a big platform for that,
Mhm,
and they've really added a lot more features to help bring back that engagement, bring back that kind of banter back and forth that you would have in an in-person event. So you can be a little bit more creative in that way too. But I definitely agree. It's definitely not the same as being in person with someone and, on the breaks going and having a nice cup of coffee or tea and just getting to chit chat and learn about one another. You don't get that aspect of it.
Right.
And so we mentioned training. So I know some of them are offered. Now, do you offer customized trainings to organizations if they're looking for a specific pain point that they're noticing coming up within the culture of their organization?
Yes. I'm very happy to develop training specific for an organization, or sometimes they contact me because they want me to present one of my regular topics just for their staff. And I'm happy to do either, to develop or offer one of my standard trainings. But one of the things that I enjoy doing is having the opportunity to talk with organizations about how they hope to implement some of the training, because that's really critical. We can all go to training. Some of it's better than others. Hopefully, most of mine is pretty good. But if people can't bring it back and implement it, then it doesn't matter. And so I really like the opportunity that custom training provides to talk to folks about how they think they're going to bring it back and use it in their organizations.
Absolutely. And what is the best way, if any of our audience members that are tuning in today, what is the best way for them to connect with you if they're looking to have one of those customized trainings or even join one of the training programs that you have currently available on your website?
So I do recommend that people look at the website first just to know what I already offer. And then I have some things that I don't have advertised on the website. And so if they don't visit the website, which is www.bemidjiconsulting.com, then they are welcome to reach out to me. And usually I'm easiest to reach via email. And that email is Becky, so Becky with a Y, at bemidjiconsulting.com.
Fantastic. And all of these are going to be in the comment box. So if you are tuning in either live or after the fact, you'll be able to reach all of her contact points. We've put in her LinkedIn profile as well as her website link and her training link. So if you want to check out any of the trainings that she's currently offering, please do so. We would love to see you there. Is there any other last bit of advice or comments that you would like to give any of our audience members?
So you asked me earlier about Zoom and some of the things that make Zoom training work well. And one of the things I just wanted to say is I think having an introductory opportunity for people to know who else is on the training with them, and even having some time to give reminders. When I do multi-session trainings, we do introductions each time. There's always something separate that we say as part of the introduction to make them a little more interesting. But my goal is really for people to be able to connect with each other and network with each other. And I think that that's something that we too easily say, nope, that's not important. There's no time. You can't do that. And it's true that if you have a really big group, you're probably not going to have the time. But if you have a smaller group, if you have 20 people or fewer, it should be possible to do that.
Absolutely. Well, and I think a great way that even if you do have a larger group, you have multiple segments where people can introduce themselves. And so you're still getting that connection piece and the networking piece. And again, one of my favorite things about networking and attending events is being able to learn from others of what their experiences are. What are some of the things they've gone through in their business that,
Right.
oh,
Right.
that's starting to resonate in where I'm at and things like that. And so being able to bring that connection piece in as much as you can, I think is definitely crucial. And one thing I really want to thank you for coming on today, Becky, because you definitely have a different approach than a lot of consultants that I've worked with or trainers that I've worked with. And I love that you bring in that community piece and you bring in that personal connection piece as well, which again is being lost a lot of the time now that everything is virtual.
Mhm.
So I wanted just to speak on that as well. And also, I'm very thankful that you were able to join us and take time out of your busy schedule. I know you have lots of trainings going on. So thank you again for joining us and providing all of this amazing knowledge to our audience today.
Thank you, Jocelyn. It was really my pleasure. And I just want to say, I work with a lot of different nonprofits who call me, and it doesn't ever necessarily evolve into a contractual relationship, which is fine with me. But I'm always
Mhm.
happy for people to reach out with their questions. And if I can help, I'm happy to help. If I can't, I'm happy to refer people to others. But thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. So again, everyone, all of Becky's contact points are in the chat. So if you're interested in any of her trainings, please visit her website and look at those that she has upcoming. Also, make sure we get on her mailing list too. You'll see all of that point on the website. You also can connect with her on LinkedIn and via her email, which is also in the chat. We'll see you for the next episode of A Moment of Honor with the Sanctuarian coming next Tuesday. And thank you all for joining us. Have a great day.